Alright, here's our first video for 2013. Just a bit of a quick video of our chilies, our first chilies of the new season. Yeah, obviously the plants, there's a few plants there that are well advanced, but so we're a little ways into the season, if you like. We're in Melbourne. It's now October. Most of the seeds have gone in late winter, August, which for Melbourne is probably a little bit early, you know, given obviously how much you need to have things under control conditions. But this year there's a bit more urgency, having moved to a new house in the last 9 or so months, and brought nothing with us in the way of plants, and so we're starting from scratch, which is kind of exciting, but also means that we had nothing, and again, like I said, we're starting from scratch. Here's what I like, essentially what I call like a second wave of things. There's all sorts of varieties in here, as you can see down there. Again, it's not focusing fantastically well. We've got saffron habanero, there's ricotta in there, manzanos, or manzano as some people might know them. In here we go back to our first boxes. There's Trinidad's, 7 pots in there, Trinidad 7-pot Jonah. There's sort of standard bird's eye and Thai varieties as well. Things like red habanero, and just a few other nondescript things. In the corner there's obviously a few things that aren't chilies. These are for our new garden, our new house, which is essentially a blank canvas. We'll get to show you that at some stage. So also planning for that as well. In here we've got some Queensland bottle trees, some Brachychiton rupestris, and down in there there's some, again sorry about the light, we are in the shed, there's some Banksia oblongifolia in there. So our garden's going to be pretty much solely focused on natives, and then obviously we'll have the edible section as well, and of course the chilies. Having moved to a new premises, everything's pretty primitive at the moment, born out of necessity. And yeah, we're in October, so in Melbourne, anyone familiar with our weather, we have very irregular patterns into spring. For instance, yesterday it was 30 degrees Celsius. Today it's about half that. So we're still sort of controlling things by bringing them indoors, taking them outside during the day, etc., etc. Still using heat tape. And we've got our heat tape, trusty old heat tape down here, which in the past has been used for heating reptile enclosures. So yeah, we're obviously using artificial lighting. I've just raised that out of the way for the purpose of filming. As you can see by the boxes in the back, we're just literally in the back shed where I house my tools and everything like that. First and foremost is to get a lot of plants up, get things established, and then we'll focus on the infrastructure, things like hothouses and stuff like that. One thing I did bring with me, which has been more than helpful, particularly in our cold winter climate we have, is my old reptile egg incubator, which has been used this year primarily and exclusively for germinating seeds. There is still a few things left in here. This is just a basic polystyrene or foam box. I just cut a hole out of the lid with cling wrap over the top to keep the moisture in, obviously. You see it's just engaged. This is just driven by some standard incandescent bulbs down the bottom, driven by the air circulates around with a old PC style fan. Just drives the air up, makes the warm air flow up through. It's been good. So once the seeds germinate, you can see there is one down in there just coming up. It's another one of my ricotta, manzano, which is probably my favourite variety, because it does so well here in our cooler climate. It grows all year round and provides fruit nearly all year round. Yeah, this is the old egg incubator. So the glass front has been invaluable in germinating our seeds. And as I say, we move things once they pop their heads up. as you can see, things sort of happening down here. Once they get their heads above surface, bring them out, put them on the heat tape, still keep them in the shed obviously, put them under sort of fairly intense lighting, not ridiculous, but it's enough to keep them going. Not after express growth rates, and more after just getting things up and trying to get maximum germination and things like that. Sorry about the noise in the background, that's a couple of my sons playing cricket hitting the shed. But yeah, that's our first of our video into our chili and native plant growing season. Nothing revolutionary, nothing to set the world on fire, just first of many and more a bit of a practice run, and we'll get some things happening on YouTube shortly. So what I did want to show you here was just sort of come outside and show you a few more of the advanced plants. It's a Trinidad 7-pot Jonah. The seeds originated from the chili factory. These are the first lot that sort of germinated the very first sort of weeks of spring in September here, and transplanted along. But what you can see, you can quite noticeably see a lot of this discoloration in these younger leaves. Yeah, what looks like probably a lot of nutrient deficiency is probably a lot more transplant shock and an acclimation shock being brought, you know, in from really controlled conditions, and then sort of transplanted and being outside, maybe a bit too much sun exposure, etc, etc, etc. But I think they'll recover. It's certainly more evident on the Trinidad varieties that we've got growing, and there's a few more obviously down here that have the same sort of effects. I think the yellow's fairly noticeable through there. We can just get some focus happening. There's a lot of this discoloration on a lot of these leaves. It's quite evident. And unfortunate as it is, I think they'll be okay. A bit of TLC. What tends to happen, obviously, sometimes spring here in Melbourne kicks off pretty early, pretty well. We get some nice warm weather, but then it can turn very, very quickly, and we're still getting cold nights. So if you're not really paying close attention to your plants, you can sort of set them back, and I think that's what these are, really more just sort of set back. A lot of the newer growth seems to be a little bit more lush, a bit darker, and obviously a bit of TLC, the weather warming up, some fertiliser, etc. I think we'll get them okay. A lot of the varieties that aren't, they're a little bit more cold tolerant, just haven't had the effects, like this Hell's Bells here. This one just hasn't felt the effects of the transplant as much. Again, we move across to a Trinidad variety, you see it's yellowed off a bit. Yeah, again, it's just I'm putting it largely down to our inconsistent Melbourne spring. It starts off, again, playing around the camera here too, so our focus is a bit ordinary, a bit all over the place. Oh yeah, so that's just a few of the plants we've got out. Again, back to some more natives here. We've got 3 varieties of acacias or wattle trees. That not all of them will go into our garden here, but we'll eventually get into our new backyard, which essentially at the moment is largely a blank canvas. Doing a bit of cheating as well this year. I've got bought some established nursery-based peppers or chilies this year. Largely due to because a bit of one of the new initiatives, we've got these pot and all plants from the chili factory that are being distributed through a major hardware nursery chain down here or around Australia, and these are a really good initiative. As the name suggests, a pot and all. The pots or the tubes that the plants come in are biodegradable, so the whole lot just goes straight in, so it's really good. There's no sort of transplant shock, only of those sort of normal things that they'd be susceptible to. And this Hungarian black is started off really well. It's been Again, these are obviously plants that are grown in controlled conditions, transported down to Melbourne where it's still up and down weather-wise, but these do not get moved. There's obviously a lot more tolerant, this plant. It stays outside, so our nighttime temperatures still can get down to around 6 or 7 degrees Celsius, that is. So it's quite cold. But across to the chocolate hab, it's doing it just as well with the exposure. It's fine. It stays out here. It's exposed to all the conditions, and we get it all in October. Here in Melbourne, you get quite cool. It's been quite wet, really windy at times, but it's just part of it. And sometimes again, what it does is just takes a while for the plants to get going. But once our spring kicks in, these will take off in no time. But the plant's healthy enough, and that's all that really matters at the moment. Again, we're trying just a few of their different varieties. This one's out in the garden. So we'll give those a go. We'll try largely experimental. We've got tomatoes. Again, excuse my camera work. I'm trying something very new with this with the camera. So I'm not even sure how it's all going to turn out. I can see that the focus is not amazing, but yeah, again, we've just got some tomatoes through here. Again, tomatoes are nothing sort of, obviously don't take anything sort of, any great difficulty to germinate. These are all germinated from seed. A few different varieties in there. And this was the first lot of seed that came through, which was no great surprise. This is jalapeno. This is jalapenos. This is one of the, I did bring a few varieties of seed with me from our previous house that we've moved from. And got an awesome germination rate with these. Potted, all came on really well. Again, have really suffered a bit from transplant shock, but as I said, there's more than enough plants. I'm not selling, I'm not anything commercial. This is more just experimental, trying to make sure I get a bit of a crop and hopefully a bit of a stockpile of seeds. Some of them aren't doing well. These basically got transplanted and they are left to their elements. So we'll see. You can see some here. This is insect damage. You can see that insect has completely annihilated that, which is alright. You're going to get losses. We've got a lot of damage on these first leaves, but a bit of insect damage here, but I think I largely expect most of these plants will recover. Yeah, some of these plants are quite okay. And again, it's jalapeno. It's not as though it's an unusual rare variety or anything like that, but good producer, and can't live without those things. So yeah, again, sorry about the camera work. It's not that fantastic. We'll work out that. Get some teething issues done. Hopefully future videos are a little bit more sharper. So as you can see, this is our veggie garden. This space was here when we first moved here, and as I say, it was the previous owners had tried to attempt to do some sort of veggie gardening, but we basically came in, cleaned out the space, gathered up some old timber, put in some beds. That one plant is one of the only plants that came with it. It's an old rhubarb. More about that later. There's a bit of sentiment attached to rhubarb, yes, believe it or not, sentiment and rhubarb. So as you can see, largely blank at the moment. Now apple trees obviously starting to come through now. We put these in through winter, and they are doing quite alright. Obviously we need two, so we have 2 apple trees. We've got some snow peas going there, second crop of snow peas. But yeah, largely a blank canvas, so maybe some more videos later on will reveal a bit more.